Information technology has changed the landscape of modern conflict with tools like the internet, social media, computer networks, and unmanned vehicles, further rewriting the role of the soldier and how militaries view warfare. In particular, there are four major areas that have positively and negatively impacted the role of today's soldier, which we will discuss. The first is net-centric warfare, which relates to incorporating wireless networking technology for communication and coordination in military operations. The second is unmanned vehicles, such as drones, which have been used extensively in recent conflicts to replace human pilots. The third issue is cyber warfare, which has opened up a new domain of warfare involving stealing data or compromising information systems. The last issue is fourth-generation warfare, which has pitted nation-states against non-state actors, often at a disadvantage.
Argument 1. Net-centric warfare. Net-centric warfare, NCW, consists of computer equipment and network communications that allow soldiers to have greater combat power through shared awareness, faster speed of command, and increased self-synchronization. A significant advantage of NCW is augmented situational awareness, which increases synergy and results in better real-time coordination of military operations. It also allows forces to consist of smaller units which can travel efficiently with fewer troops and supplies. For example, during Operation Iraqi Freedom, U.S. Army forces used swarm tactics, since networking technologies enable the soldiers to monitor each other's locations. Thus, forces in Iraq could spread out in smaller independent units to swarm and attack the enemy. This makes it difficult for the enemy to attack, allows combat units to cover more area to avoid the need to maintain tight formation, and reduces fratricide, as the location of all friendly units are readily available. These technologies also improve the way in which soldiers relay information and ask for next steps. For instance, a unit on the field can radio the Tactical Operations Center, TOC, as needed. It uses Microsoft Chat to communicate to experts in the Pentagon. This means that a soldier on the front lines has access to real-time expert guidance and intel that could help them defend themselves, greatly improving the speed of command. Recently, the U.S. Army awarded Microsoft a contract worth $21 billion for augmented reality headsets that can help soldiers map the battlefield and overlay intelligence information onto the field of vision. While using networking technologies can help soldiers, they can also expose them to different threats such as enemy interference through cyber attacks. The soldiers' communication technologies may be jammed or compromised on the field. This month alone, Russian soldiers' mobile phones were hacked after their encrypted communication system, IRA, was destroyed during ongoing military operations in Ukraine. Soldiers are adapting to these technologies through further training. In 2017, the UK Ministry of Defence arranged a mock cyber attack on soldiers, wherein hackers were attempting to gain access to military communications equipment. Lastly, NCW might produce a long-term negative impact on the military, as young leaders never get to really lead because superiors maintain control from the operations center or further back in rear echelons. Argument 2. Unmanned vehicles. A popular form of modern weaponry developed through advancements in information technologies are unmanned vehicles. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, such as remote drones, can be operated by individuals protecting military bases far away from the battlefield to conduct airstrikes on targets of interest, while unmanned ground vehicles, UGVs, can assist ground troops by transporting explosives and additional ammunition to soldiers, as well as provide real-time surveillance to better inform troop decisions. This helps the role of soldiers by increasing combat power and reducing physical load. Some soldiers describe drone operators as safe behind computer screens or as playing war video games. Due to the reduced risk that drone operators face, combined with the great destructive power they wield, many questions arise regarding the morality of such technologies. Unmanned vehicles change the role of the soldier by replacing boots on the ground with autonomous technology that can offer more precision and control with the reduction of casualties. At the 2014 Army Aviation Symposium, it was suggested by former U.S. Army Training and Doctrine General Robert Cohn that relying on support robots can reduce a brigade from 4,000 to 3,000 soldiers without diminishing effectiveness. Nevertheless, there do exist fears of technologies such as drones increasing civilian casualties, especially in counterterrorism strikes, placing soldiers that fulfill the attacks at new moral crossroads. Beyond basic survivor's guilt, drone operators also have to live with the fact that while they are removed from the battlefield, they are supporting comrades who are actually facing gunfire, bombs, and other life-threatening situations. Although PTSD is a common condition for soldiers returning from the battlefield, more than 4% of drone operators also show signs of PTSD. Even though both groups have to live with this condition, drone operators are not provided with the same resources to deal with it. Drone operators are subject to difficulty sleeping, vivid flashbacks, disturbing memories, and nightmares, but they're still unlikely to be given disability claims and continue to struggle with emotions such as anger, guilt, and regret after strikes. IT systems have made this detached form of warfare possible, forcing the future soldier to require more technical aptitude and technology integration at the expense of a new age of psychological trauma.
Argument 3. Cyber warfare. Cyber warfare is a new domain of warfare accessible to state actors, non-state actors, and individual hackers, changing a soldier's war space to cyberspace. Cyber warfare includes two main forms, espionage and sabotage. Espionage is the monitoring of a target to gather information or secrets including military tactics and locations to gain an advantage in achieving political objectives. For instance, a Chinese national Su Bin hacked many U.S. defense contracts to gain information about new Air Force technologies. This information could be used to reverse engineer the technology or find weaknesses to exploit, placing soldiers using such technology on the grounds at higher risk. Cyber sabotage is cyber activity that is designed to cause the destruction or manipulation of sensitive information. One example of cyber sabotage is the 2008 Russian invasion of Georgia. Russia was the first country to use cyber attacks to support their conventional attacks. To limit Georgia's ability to coordinate defense and communicate to their soldiers, Russia overwhelmed their IT infrastructure. By sending the soldiers into disarray, the attack was very successful. Modern military systems rely on IT systems for logistics, command and control, fleet positioning, everything down to targeting, creating an area of vulnerability for the modern soldier. For example, GPS satellites have been documented to direct the movements of about 800,000 US military receivers, of which any glitches or attacks can disrupt communication of unarmed vehicles, supply distribution, or movement of troops. In response, military systems are building cyber warfare units such as the U.S. Army Service Component Command to organize, develop, and employ core cyber capabilities. U.S. soldiers in other non-cyber branches are also required to undergo the Cyber Awareness Challenge annually to augment cybersecurity training. With the presence of cyber warfare growing with advancements in oppositional technology, the modern soldier is required to have a concrete understanding of the cyberspace to avoid detrimental strikes to the entire military system. Argument 4. Fourth Generation Warfare. Fourth Generation Warfare, or 4GW for short, is conflict characterized by a blurring between civilians and combatants, with states fighting against non-state opponents and involving low-intensity combat or civil disobedience. 4GW is also characterized by decentralization, where the non-state combatants has little formal structure or hierarchy. Through wireless communication and social media, information technology allows decentralized warfare by waging war remotely and spreading misinformation. Decentralized organizations typically lack strategic objectives to target, making it problematic for states to conduct conventional large-scale military operations. Generally, the goal of non-state combatants is to exhaust the opponent's motivation for staying in the conflict through prolonged and costly wars. For example, the Taliban during the Afghanistan war were easily expelled from major cities at the start of the NATO invasion, but conducted guerrilla warfare and insurgency for the next 20 years until the US and NATO allies lost support at home for staying in Afghanistan. The withdrawal provided the Taliban with an opportunity to retake the country all while being grossly mismatched against NATO forces. For non-state combatants, information technology has provided a means to level the playing field against nation-states with significantly more resources and military power. The role of the soldier has changed significantly from conventional operations to counterinsurgency and peacekeeping actions in the face of 4GW. A recently popular counterinsurgency tactic is clear and hold, which focuses on keeping areas clear of insurgents and guerrillas. The role of the soldier has also expanded to helping stabilize and rebuild civilian infrastructures, with the aim to foster economic growth and improve local quality of life. Soldiers are now faced with unique dangers in 4GW compared to conventional warfare. Against insurgents, which often involve armed civilians, child soldiers, and paramilitary without uniforms, it is increasingly difficult to distinguish civilians from foe and can result in more civilian casualties than before, which leads profound psychological damage to soldiers. The war in Afghanistan led to 71,000 civilian deaths, many of which were directly due to NATO airstrikes and crossfire. Furthermore, 15.7% of screen veterans suffered from PTSD after being deployed in the war in Afghanistan.
As advancements in information technologies continue, the role of the soldier in modern warfare must also adapt with upcoming improvements and consequences. To further understand the changing role of the soldier, we interviewed Airman Lee of the Republic of China Air Force. When asked his opinion on cyber attacks and their growing presence and focus in the military, he stated, "With cyber attacks becoming more common, the department has created a cyber information specialist unit with additional training on cybersecurity. Some examples of training exercises include white hat hacking, where we attempt to gain access to our own government secure data, as well as strengthening the defense on our government side to prevent information leakage." As a pilot, we also asked his opinion on the growing industry of drones in the military task force. Some of the benefits of drones are that they're cheaper to maintain compared to planes, and that their use in strikes or surveillance activities allow the Air Force to focus their pilots on tasks where a human decision maker is required. However, there are some issues with data latency, and I think drone technology will need to become more advanced before they are more widespread. Overall, with military technology leading current advancements in cyberspace, the modern soldier has access to more network connections for net-centric warfare at the cost of higher vulnerability to cyber attacks and disconnection from their units. To combat the consequences, there is a growing awareness of proper cybersecurity practices, both in special task forces as well as the general soldier. In addition, unmanned vehicles are a growing industry that provides soldiers with surveillance and precision strikes. However, the technology is still advancing and has yet to tackle the common mental trauma associated with war. Finally, fourth-generation warfare has provided soldiers with greater responsibilities, including nation rebuilding and counterinsurgency, but with new dangers as non-state combatants increasingly rely on guerrilla warfare, terrorism, and insurgency to fight nation-states.